Compassionate Use Act law called Prop 215, and that is how all of us basically got started. So you would open a collective, and by having a collective, you could then sell to the members of your collective and work with other people who had a collective as well. Then the state came in, and on Jan 1st of 2018, they introduced a regulated market. So Marin County, we basically lobbied up and down to see who was going to be open to having us as a business, and thanks to Danielle. Danielle, can you stand up really quickly, please? Can you give her a round of applause? If it wasn't for Danielle, none of us here would be in business, and there really wouldn't be this micro industry in Marin County. So I'm gonna cry. I might cry. She was our unicorn that basically saved the cannabis industry here. She released about 16 licenses through the city of San Rafael. And as of today, this morning, we are adult use, meaning we can sell to anybody over 21 and up, and medically as well. So it's very exciting. Nicole, do you want to give a little brief about you?
Sure. Yeah. So my name is Nicole. My mother and I founded Cosmic View. We started as a collective under 215 in 2017. We started Cosmic View after I am a cancer survivor, and my mother had her own lab. She was a scientist and a professor at UC Berkeley. And so she does all of our formulations. We make really sort of like niche medicinal, topical, and tincture products. And we are absolutely thrilled that we were able to. My parents live in Novato. I live in West Marin, and we were thrilled that we were able to stay in Marin and to build our company here. So, yeah.
I'm Drew Bolfer. I'm a co-founder of Valhalla Confections. We make infused edible candy.
What's confection? Valhalla?
Valhalla.
Thank you.
As in the Norse meeting of the gods. I've been doing this about 5 years. Ironically, I took a very different path. Started in structured finance for commercial real estate. Think commercial mortgage-backed securities, Lehman Brothers, circa 2007. When that went away, I became self-employed. I have an active California broker's license. It just so happened to be that this skill set that I had kind of worked in cannabis in terms of all the regulatory fun that we have to deal with. So now today, myself and my partner, have Valhalla Confections. We're in 3 states, working on our 4th, and it's been really an amazing journey.
So now that you can have like a little background on us, just so you guys can get a little into understanding what it took, you basically can't be located just anywhere in Marin, right? So you have green areas of where you're allowed to be, and then within those green areas, you have to find a landlord that's going to approve you. So for me, the way I got approved was Nicole and her family had a warehouse in San Rafael, and they allowed me to start ONA through their warehouse, and that is how we got our state license to our San Rafael license, which is really exciting. How many dispensaries are you in, Nicole?
We're in about 25 now.
25, and all through California. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's very exciting. And how about you, Drew? You said you're in 3 states?
3 states, right now active, about 68 in California.
It's amazing.
Another dozen in Nevada and a few in New Mexico.
Amazing. Great. Do you guys want to open it up to questions for a little bit? I feel like there's going to be...
What do your gummies do?
They cure all problems.
I have a question about gummies as well, and other edibles. I have been living with chronic pain for a long time, and I'm taking medication which I would prefer not to take. So I've been experimenting a lot with different kinds of cannabis. Smoking doesn't work for me because it's too smelly. But what I find is that some chocolates really do help my pain, while others, even if they say they're the same milligrams of CBD and or THC, don't work the same. Then I tried gummies, So I'm curious as to, and I don't know which of you this is right for, if we're talking, 50 milligrams of CBD and 10 of THC, and the same exact dosage in a gummy and in a chocolate, why will one work and not the other?
Can I take this one?
Yes, please.
Anyone on the stage is equipped to answer this, by the way. This is one of the biggest
But
problems
you're the gummy guy.
within the industry. You just really focused in on two separate problems within our lovely California regulation. The
Sorry.
first,
That's not
no,
what you
this is what keeps me up at night, and the problems that we as a group try to solve.
Then it's a good question.
It's a very good question. And by the way, half the people that are users that use my products are what you just described. How do I do this?
Okay, good.
With that said, the first
Well, you know
problem with the first problem that you just described is dosing. The labs, in my humble opinion, were not regulated as much as we are, and they were held to a scrutiny that they are ill-equipped to do. In California's judgment, they decided to test to the billionth particle, where the FDA only tests to the millionth particle. And labs simply aren't equipped to be able to do this reliably and accurately. My products tested at 10 milligrams for years, almost exactly, every single time. Then July 1 hits when we're forced to test to this new threshold. It's all over the boards.
Your same product that was
Same exact
consistently
product
10 milligrams is now.
So we have this huge, and this is still to this day, I will take the same oil that I use or the finished product, the gummy that I use, to 3 different labs, and I will get 3 different results within pretty consistently about a 20% variance. 20%
Which could make a big
variance.
difference to a patient like me.
Imagine if you got a glass of wine that had a 20% variance. Or any medication, really. Think of it that way.
Either put you over, or
So the labs are playing
go on
catch
to
up.
second place.
That's the first part. They're just not there yet. They're getting better, in my opinion. These guys might think differently. But they're still figuring it out, as we all are in any emerging industry.
That actually makes sense, given my experience. Thank you.
The next part of your question is how edibles people infuse their products. What type of medication are they using, and where is it coming from? Is it full spectrum, meaning does it represent all the cannabinoids, or is it just simply isolating the THC molecule and putting that out there? There's not, unfortunately, a lot of science either way on this, but there is science, what's called the entourage effect, where for whatever reason, if we mix all these cannabinoids together, they appear to work a lot better than simply isolating CBD or THC or pick a cannabinoid. There's a lot of them.
Common sense.
We have a lot to learn. There's a lot of great people working on it, but we're still sort of in the infancy stage. I think you're going to see a huge amount of innovation in how we infuse our products in the next year or 2 or 3, and which cannabinoid ratios work the best. But we're not quite there yet. It's a lot of anecdotal at this point. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on this, because that's my 2 cents.
Thank
Hopefully
you
that
for
helps.
info. It does.
Yeah, I mean, as a fellow manufacturer, I don't make confections. We make tinctures, which are an edible product as well. But yeah, I mean, certainly the issue with labs is a real issue. And there's also been some issues even with like corruption in labs, unfortunately.
Yes, tons of it.
So I think for us, it's super frustrating as manufacturers. We actually do pretty well. My mom's a scientist, so she's formulating our products, but even then, we've had failed batches, for potency that it'll be the same cannabis extract in one batch and another, and there's this variance, and we're still trying to figure it out. So yeah, I think that's a big issue, and it's something that is really expensive for us, and also as a it's a consumer. Yeah, it's a consumer safety and safety issue. So yeah, and I also second Drew's thoughts just about finding a full spectrum medicine that, like you'll have it. In my opinion, as a medicine maker, you'll have a different experience than if you're just consuming isolates or highly processed processed distillates and stuff.
Have you tried a tincture for your chronic pain? I was just wondering if you tried a tincture for your chronic pain, and I like the fact that you tried a bunch of things, because what I always
Like
tell people,
tried a tincture,
yeah,
like under my.
the oil that you put on your
I've
hands.
tried, what is it, Care by Design has, I tried, I think it was an 18-to-1 CBD. You know, since I'm going more mostly for the pain, I've been concentrating on CBD counts. And, I think it actually did help.
Yeah, what I was going to say is I like the fact that you've tried chocolates and gummies, because what we always tell our clients is that not one product will work for every person, and it really is an experiment of getting to know your body, your ecocannabinoid system, and finding what works right for you. So I wouldn't give up after
I'm
trying
not giving up.
2 products.
But
Yeah.
I also don't want to take as much as, if I take as much as I need to, not just take the edge off the pain, but to eliminate it, I don't want to get crazy high either, because then everybody's going to know it, which is not my intent.
Right.
What I don't understand, or it may have been answered already with this lab discrepancy, but like you said with your mom, if you're using the same, let's call it a base, tincture, or whatever it is that you're infusing. Let's say we've got the same exact base in a big bottle, and now you break it up and you infuse it in chocolate and in gummies, and not infuse it at all and have it as a tincture. Are the gummies and the chocolates with that same base going to potentially react differently? Like one might work where the other might not?
The quick answer is no. If I take the oil that she's using and I infuse it in my products, it should have the same effect, with the one outlier being not all companies are really good at infusing sugar-based products.
Right, so I've got to find the right company and then stick with their product.
Yeah, and if you want, like, I'm sure Drew and I would be happy to answer questions.
I would love to talk to you privately. I don't want to take up
Yeah.
this whole thing. Thank you.
Very sure.
I'd like to add 2 points to what you all said. I agree with you, and full spectrum is just the way to go. One is that just because you take 20 milligrams doesn't mean 20 milligrams gets into your system. Some things get bound up, meaning that you, when you take
Within
any
the product or within my system?
within your system's different than mine and different from
Exactly.
hers. And so, just because you take 20 milligrams doesn't mean 20 milligrams gets delivered into your endocannabinoid system. Some of them may get bound up. You may have other things in your system, possibly anything from an aspirin to prescription medications that could have an effect on this. Secondly, just because 10 milligrams works for one person doesn't mean it will work for another. I tried doing gummies and tinctures and a number of things a couple years ago. I'm putting my own business together for CBDs as well, and I've got a 25-year history as a winemaker and a chemist. So, the thing I found was that each of us has a different tolerance, and you've got to experiment. When I took 10 milligrams, which is kind of the standard dosage in the industry, nothing was working.
Right.
And I literally wrote it off like, it's a bunch of hooey. And then 2 years ago, my sister handed me a jar of coconut oil with CBDs, and she said, give it a try. And I said, nah, that stuff doesn't work. She goes, it works. She's been on oxycodone because she's got a bad knee and a bad back, and she told me she was able to get off of that, work with this. And when you're heavily CBD and very minor THC, my product's coming from hemp, so it's below 0.3% THC. There's no high.
That's it.
So you can't overdose.
Right.
That's the beauty of CBD. If you take too much, you waste a little bit of money, but there's no high. So it's not like you have one drink too many or an extra glass of wine, but you're not going to get any high out of it. So you waste a little bit of money. So what I say to people as I talk to them, take a little bit more and then work backwards.
Yeah.
You're going to waste a little bit of money, but the first thing is to get to that pain relief and find out what works for you versus
Exactly.
someone
That's
else.
exactly what I was saying.
And
We always say
coconut oil was a topical.
you go low and slow, and you experiment, and you're gonna find your sweet spot. Can I over there?
Yeah, these are kind of the questions we get answered at a dispensary.
Yes.
I don't find anybody to talk to when I order something in, so
Yeah,
when I go to the dispensary, if I have a question like that, and I got somebody that will talk to me about it and give me some feedback and some insights, just like what you're trying to do here today.
Right.
And what do we have, one dispensary opening around now?
Yeah, so unfortunately, that was a huge thing with Marin. Marin County, about 4 years ago, opened an ordinance to have a dispensary front. There were about 16 people that applied, 4 that moved forward, and then at the end of it, the county said, you know what, we don't want to do this, and they backed out on the whole deal. And then no other city has come forward yet to open a dispensary front. I know that a lot of different people have been coming into Marin trying to open one, but cities are just not ready yet. I wouldn't be surprised if some random city like Sausalito or Novato all of a sudden opens an ordinance and it happens, but I do think we're a little bit away from that. And moving into kind of the topic of today, which is the future of cannabis in Marin, I foresee San Rafael, since we have been like the forefront of everything, all the cities are watching us right now, and they're probably waiting to see the numbers. They're waiting to make sure that the crime is down. They're making sure that, you know, everybody is satisfied. And then I think we're going to see a lot of different cities be open to it. But everybody's very skeptical. I mean, at a personal level, I went and lobbied in every single city before this happened, and they will turn around and just, they want nothing to do with it. It's pretty harsh, you know.
We don't understand.
Yeah, and I
They
mean,
have the
There's a
false
lot of fear.
impression of what it is and what, you know, oh, if you smoke pot, you're going to
the
end up
stigma
with
is
cocaine.
still very much there, and I feel like when they think of a store, they think that it's going to have some big green leaf outside with smoke coming out, you know.
Right.
Like
Exactly.
realistically, with state laws, you can't have signage, you can't look inside. It's very much like a medical building. Unfortunately, right now, I do not see Marin having that. But you know, companies like mine and other delivery services, you call us and we'll take 20 to 30 minutes talking to you about products. It's just like being at a storefront.
Sure.
We'll email you all the information that you need in order to understand what's going on and how these products can help you. So we do have access. It's just not the walk-in access.
Isn't there still a
Sorry,
storefront in
there's a lady right
Fairfax?
behind you.
Can you speak to the approval of state licenses and how fast they're happening? And, you know, wasn't there a temporary license that was issued for a lot of people last year? And state licenses are not necessarily getting approved, and supply and demand going forward. Can you touch on that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you guys want me to touch on it for a second? Or?
Take it away.
Okay, so the temporary state licenses started Jan 1st of 2018, and that is how everybody basically went from the Prop 215 law and transitioned into the legal market. And these were correct temp licenses that I'm actually still under a temp license until July. And so while you're under temp, you have to file for your annual, and it's a lot more paperwork than your temp was. Now, what you're talking about them expiring, we're going to have what I foresee as another apocalypse. I don't know if anybody remembers, but in July 1st of 2018, there was no products on any shelf. There's basically the apocalypse of no cannabis out there because they implied these new testing regulations, and the labs got backed up on testing, so nothing came out and nothing was on the shelf. So what we're seeing now is a bunch of these cannabis companies are about to expire, and the state does not have enough people going through these applications to approve people in time. So there's a lot of speculation on who's going to get their temp, whose temp's going to expire, and who's going to get into an annual. I think that I'm on a different spectrum because retailers are done by the BCC versus you guys are CDPH, and that's the one that's having the issue, correct?
They're all having issues. Take it away.
I mean, I was just going to say, we actually just got our annual license. I think it was so it was really easy to get a temp license. Like, all you needed was a letter from your local municipality saying that they were okay with you.
They acknowledge
operating.
your existence.
They acknowledge your existence, and you had to have a landlord who'd be willing to rent to you and know what you're doing. The stakes were incredibly low under the temp license regime. You basically didn't have to do anything. And then going through getting your permanent license, I'm sure Drew can attest to how brutal that process is in terms of I mean, they basically treat you like a pharmaceutical company. So when people are like, how do you, like, they're all fearful of cannabis, and I'm like, do you know what we have to go through? I mean, the amount of testing, the standard operating procedures that the state has to approve on, like, security, cleanliness, you know, everything, it's pretty crazy. I think the problem with the licensing system now is that the bar is so high that it's really hard for small businesses to actually get involved. I mean, I don't think you could really start up a company with less than $1 million in capital right now. The only reason we were able to do it is because we came in under 215 and then the temp licensing system. So I do think that there's going to be a problem. I think a lot of people aren't, due to the magnitude of the hoops that you have to jump through and how much capital you have to expend, unless you can be super scrappy like we were, I think that a lot of people just won't be able to get a permanent license, and I hope I'm wrong.
I just have a secondary question about growing and the actual product itself. Don't you believe that people that had temporary licenses last year that were okay to grow, that now their licenses have expired, or rather they haven't gotten approved yet, are going to continue to grow? And should they do that illegally with the idea that they may or may not get approved, and if they get approved, they can sell it? If they don't, they go back to the black market. I mean, how?
Yeah.
That sums
And
it
are you
up.
supposed to shut down?
You just nailed it. You know, this is going to come down to each grower's personal decisions, whether they want to risk getting into the bad graces of the CDPH or the BCC, rather. I have a lot of growers that are going to stay underground.
Yeah.
It's just not worth it, and I get it.
Well, and the penalty for that is what? It's like a tax fine, or it's like the way the system is set up. It's set up so that you actually are sort of incentivized. It's like a cost-benefit analysis, where it's like, okay, so if I get busted, I'll pay a tax penalty versus...
Because it's no longer, is it technically considered no longer a crime to where you're going to go to jail, or?
It's a monetary fine, and it's in the regs, and that was the first thing I read. What are the fines for each penalty?
Right.
So we can understand how we prioritize where we're going to place capital.
And is there any additional information about the government trying to get these licenses approved?
It kind of goes into the abyss. I mean, right now the way it's written is they're not allowed to give it a third extension, fourth extension. So the state's kind of tied up. You keep thinking cooler heads will prevail and they'll extend these things. They'll find some mechanism to extend these so we don't have another apocalypse. But
I think they're trying to push a bill.
they're trying to push it, and we
trying
keep
to push
hoping.
a bill through that would extend these temporary licenses, but that's the whole game with cannabis, is because it's all so new and everyone's learning as they go, including the state and the operators, that it's like, somebody recently told me, it's like you jump off the cliff and then you build your plane, and like that's kind of what the state's doing. They're like trying to build us as we go.
But I mean, unfortunately, it's a recipe for going out of business. Like, for example, the state it's not even in the regulations, they just decided we can't put the word organic on any of our packaging. We use all of our ingredients are organic, and I can't, even if something is certified organic, I cannot demarcate that on my package. Well, thank God I'm going through my box design now and not like 3 months ago, because I would have had $40,000 worth of packaging that I couldn't use. I mean, that's the reality, is like the state just decides to change things, and it's really
And
brutal.
we've all thrown away gobs of packaging
Oh my God,
because of little technicalities like that. We have made more landfills filled up because of packaging than you could possibly imagine.
Are the decision makers with all these different ideas and bills coming to make this happen, are the decision makers the same ones looking at all of it? Or have they also changed? Because we need new eyes and new visions to look at these propositions, differently and see the value. Or are we dealing with the same people over and over again?
A little bit of both. There's a lot of really great lobbyists and people within our industry that are pushing to make legitimate
but those
change.
aren't the ones that sign off on it. What I mean, the legislators, but whoever it is would.
I agree. My answer is it's an emerging industry and there's a lot of problems.
Yeah, got it.
And a few years from now, they'll probably be fixed or they won't. We'll see.
You've got the right answer.
Would
you say something about the banking system and what's happening there?
Oh, God.
Your experience?
Well,
I know it's a big issue. You talked about it last year. What's happened?
You guys are hitting all the good questions
Nothing.
today.
I mean, we literally had to go to the IRS yesterday with a bag of cash. I'm sure both of you guys can attest to the fact that we've had bank accounts closed one after the other. We have zero access to banking. I mean, it's brutal.
Because they think it's
unfortunately, like you
It is
mentioned, we
illegal at the
spoke.
federal level.
Yeah, we spoke about it last year, and that is the one thing that has not changed or progressed quite yet. I do believe that that is going to be linked into the federal side of it because banking is connected that way. Which, yeah, it's really hard. I hope that there would be maybe like a California bank or something that would come up for us. But that is the hardest part.
I grew up in Eureka, and so I kind of keep track of what's going on up there. Crime rate in downtown Eureka is really high for that little town. And I'm wondering how much of that is due to the fact that it's a cash industry. And have you seen that impact, that kind of an impact, because there is a lot of cash around?
I actually have not seen any crime here. I've heard problems with deliveries in Oakland where guys like, manufacturers are dropping off their products. In terms of cash, what she said, we go to the IRS. I go there quarterly. I have the number of my IRS agent, her personal cell phone, where I call her up and make an appointment every quarter. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, but it's smart.
Because we were there for 2 hours.
Has the Safe Banking Act affected you guys at all, or is that helping
There is
you?
banks that we can use. Right now they're $2,000 or $3,000 a month. I think there's one that's $1,500 a month just to play.
Like Dama Financial and places like that?
Yeah, Technicolor, and there's one up in Santa Rosa. There's a couple out there. There's a bunch of platforms that work through banks.
There's like credit unions that are doing
Yeah.
pilot programs.
Yeah, it's just.
Well, can you just expand on